Hey, Wicked Deke here with your Kings update. It is Friday, November 8th, 2019, and I'm looking at the standings here, and the Kings are second overall. Oh, wait, got that upside down. So last night the Kings played the Senators, the Sens, and we lost. Dear God. Uh, really surprised to see us lose. I got to be honest. I thought, last week we finally had some time for practice. I thought with the practice, the Kings would get back to playing a better structure. Sure enough, they came out, played against the Maple Leafs. I thought they were pretty solid. Team was playing the structure, dotting the I's, crossing the T's. And I mean, they lost 3-1, but that, of course, was really down to that 30-second, brain fart there. And I mean, realistically, I just think we were going to beat the Leafs. I mean, the offensive talent difference was pretty noticeable, and that's kind of what way it turned out. Kings had their chances, and they didn't put them in the net. And the Leafs, when they had their chances, they did. Notwithstanding John Tavares with the single worst miss of the season. Oh man, he was just catching endless amounts of shit for that in the locker room afterwards. And then I loved that he bent his stick, oh, maybe it's the stick. Yeah, no, you just blew it. But nonetheless, I thought they played well. And so you figured they would bring that game into Ottawa. And if they played that structure, they would suffocate the Sens, score some goals. I was thinking maybe 4-1. Nope. And what we saw is that when the Kings get away from their structure or some of their talent deficiencies show up, well, they're going to be in trouble. And I think that's what we saw. Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Now, the game surprised me also because it was kind of boring. I thought with these two teams where they are, we might see a high end-to-end type of game, and it just kind of never really developed. Things picked up in the third there, particularly at the end with Foley, and then obviously in overtime. But the first two periods, I was really surprised at how boring it was. I was kind of shocked that it wasn't more entertaining. And, the first two periods looked like, quite honestly, two bad hockey teams. I mean, it was, it was just, I don't know. I also think it's probably somewhat difficult for the teams to really get the intensity up when the barn's half full. I mean, how is hockey going to survive in Ottawa? I realize the owner is batshit crazy and deserves, every bit of bad development he gets. But wow, that team just, man, it's really hard to see how they're going to survive. You think it's kind of surprised they weren't moved to Seattle, although I know Napoleon, aka Gary Bettman, doesn't like to move his franchises around, but you got to feel like things are on an edge in Ottawa. Nonetheless, thought the game was kind of boring. But I also think, again, that it showed the talent deficit that you see with the Kings. Now, the Kings have a lot of holes in their lineups, but the one real problem that they have that's just obvious and, really bared itself last night is the center lineup. And I know everybody talks about the centers. So Lizotte, Mario, Kempe, they are what they are. Bottom six forwards, on any other team, any credible team. And, whatever you may think of them, you like their game, you like their stories, you don't like them, whatever. The bigger problem is they just don't produce. I mean, Amadio has produced somewhat. Kempe and Lizotte have produced nothing. So even though they may be a great story or, whatever your thoughts are, I mean, if you go into a game and only your first line center is realistically going to score, you're screwed. And you're particularly screwed when that first line center then doesn't play well and doesn't really produce. Now, Kopitar, I'm not the Kopitar honk that everybody else was. Even during the Cup years, I wasn't. I think he's a very good player. I don't think he's a great player. Now, having said that, I give him credit when credit is due. When he was in the MVP Final Three, he got ripped off. He should have won. Taylor Hall, please. Kopitar played both ends, face-offs, was master of the defense as well as the offense, put up big numbers. He carried the Kings that year completely and absolutely should have won the MVP. Since then, obviously things haven't gone as well. To me, he's a guy that has just a lot of wear and tear. I don't doubt the effort or anything of that sort. He just has a lot of wear and tear. I don't think he fits that great into the more offensive system just because it's lack of quickness and speed. I mean, you saw it last night, guys pulling away from him. Having said all of that, he's still the Kings' best player by far. And I think last night he didn't have a great game, but I don't think that's because he's falling off of a cliff or the wear and tear or anything. I just think he didn't have a great game. He had a nice pass to Brown on his goal. Obviously, overtime was kind of a disaster. Now, to his credit, he owned it. But he ended up the night, he had 0 shots on goal. He lost something like 12 of 18 faceoffs. And again, I don't think that's because his career is falling off or anything. I think he just didn't have a good game. Now, in that situation, it's not something that the Kings can just overcome. They don't have the talent. Lazat's not going to score or rack up even points. Kempe isn't. And Mario will pitch in every once in a while, but if that's your situation, you're going to be 5-10-1. And the season, I don't know how they're going to fix it. I'd bring up Jared Anderson-Dolan myself, but maybe they just don't want to infect him with the losing. But as long as that's your 4-line center, you're in bad shape. And then if Kopitar has an off night, like last night, then you're just doubly screwed. So a couple years, obviously, we'll hope Turcotte, maybe Velarde and Thomas and Jared Anderson-Dolan, all show up and can play. Because, man, our center lineup is ugly. Any good news? I thought Campbell played well. I thought defensively, we were fairly solid. McDermott, I thought, got overexposed. Maybe the Ewok King started to believe a little too much. And we saw McDermott, I thought, had a, kind of a crappy game, to be quite honest. I like him. I like his story. I like everything he's done to try to get up and develop into a defenseman. But last night, for a while, he was playing, top 2 pairing minutes. Yeah, that should never happen. He should be a 7th or 6th defenseman, and play his role, bring some presence, physical presence. I think he's great at that, and I think it's needed, and he should be on the Kings. Absolutely, I'm not fighting that in any way, shape, or form. But he should never play 15 minutes, unless it's just a really physical game, a lot of fights. And that wasn't what was happening last night. Any good news? Toffoli scored. High-end skill, according to Jim Fox, who I thought was going to freaking melt down there. It was a nice goal. Not sure it was high-end skill. I think there was a certain element of, oh, shit, there's 12 seconds left. Shoot. But full credit to him. He had that goal. Obviously, he had the egregious miss earlier in the game. Could have had another goal or, had 2 great opportunities in the overtime. Didn't pop them, but he was going to the areas he needed to go to score. So that's good. And let's just hope he gets on a hot streak, starts piling up goals so we can trade him. Have Blake and the boys, cut some video highlights from the game last night, send it off to Boston, Pittsburgh, and other teams that most people believe are looking for wing talent. Look at these clutch goals. Take him. We only want 5 first-round picks for him. At the beginning of the season, I predicted 85 points. The Kings are currently on a pace for 54. Oh, dear God. I'm sticking to my 85 points for now. Maybe another hour. Yeah, it's kind of looking grim, huh? Structurally, you look at the Kings, I thought McClellan would improve him. I thought he was worth 10 points. They had 71 points last year. And I think McClellan has done a good job. When they play the structure, they're competitive. They kind of remind me of the Islanders. You look at the Islanders roster on paper and you think, that's not a playoff team. And then they go out and get 100 points or what have you. Now, their high-end skill is better than the Kings' high-end skill, at wing in particular. So when they get their opportunities, they tend to score at a greater efficiency than the Kings do. But you can see how the Islanders use a particular style and structure to win games. Hell, they just had a 10-game winning streak. Could you imagine the Kings going on a 10-game winning streak? 2025, maybe. But I think McClellan's done his job. I think the problem is the Kings just get away from the structure too much. And when they do, their talent deficit just shows through, and they're just awful. So I'm sticking with the 85 points for now. Realistically, yeah, that number's probably going to drop significantly soon. But what the hell? It's a sunny day, sunny weekend is forecast for Southern California. Life could be worse, huh? So, Kings fans, get out there and work on your melanoma. Dig out.